Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is November 19th, 2017, Walk in the Park, episode 180. If you want to see all of my episodes, you can go to walkinthepark.tv, and they'll all be on there, and this one will be up on there as well. The first showing on Pegasus Public Access Television will be on the 30th, November 30th, Thursday, 9 p.m., and there's a whole schedule that will extend for the next week. And you can go to our website and find out about all of our public access television programs, shows, series, times, and how you can get involved and become a producer yourself in Ithaca Public Access Television, local community media. We need more people. And we also have a Facebook page, so you can go to that and sign up, become a fan, and get the latest information and actually watch shows online. So today we have a special guest. Our guest is Linda Spielman, and she is here to tell us about tracking. She has written a book. Let's see, take a look at her book. A Field Guide to Tracking Mammals in the Northeast. So let's get us both in the view here. So Linda, tell us about your, I've known Linda a long time. She's a local naturalist and has for 25 years she's been tracking animals and teaching other people how to do it, and getting there's a whole lot more than just following animals out there. There's a whole science to it, and there's so much to learn about natural history. And I imagine it's kind of like birding, you know, if you learn the mammals through their behavior and so on, you start to open up a whole window on our ecology that wasn't available to you before. So anyway, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in your book.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. To start with, this is really a thrill to be here. It started, like you say, over 25 years ago, and I got the tracking bug and became pretty much obsessed. The more I did it, the more I had to do it. And you're right, it leads to every connection in the natural world, every way of looking at natural things that we have now.
Yeah.
It just kind of widens out your horizons in every way. People come to tracking for various reasons. I think I started out, I just wanted to know what was going on. I felt like I was a visitor in the woods, a visitor in the fields, and then when I left, everything happened. And I come back and I didn't have a clue, you know, what all these creatures were doing, what was going on, what were the interactions. And when I found tracking, I found a way to find that information,
start
to know
read that,
more.
read what's going on. I know in the winter when I go out and I see, oh my gosh, look at all these tracks in the woods. Oh, I think that was a squirrel, you know, or that's probably a fox. No, that's a dog, you know. And it's like, and that sort of thing. And I say, wow, these stories are all written in the snow, particularly, but also in the mud and other signs as well. So.
Yes, all year round. You have to kind of sleuth them out for non-snow tracking. You have to start thinking about other trackable surfaces. Now, everything is trackable, but I mean, for us, for our pretty crude perceptions, where we are going to see tracks isn't going to be all over the place at this time of year, where all these leaves are all over the forest floor. But there are places where we can find tracks. But of course, snow, it covers everything. We can follow animals wherever they go. It's glorious. You know? And I think that was part of my ability to realize I wanted to track was I didn't grow up this far north. I grew up where there was much less snow. So I had to come up here and realize, snow all winter, you know, we can do these things. We can learn about animals just by following them.
And it also maybe gives us a different attitude towards winter. I mean, probably most of us say, oh, winter, we got to close ourselves up in here and go into hibernation until spring, turn off all our senses and look at computer screens. And no, we don't. There's a lot going on out there.
I get really funny looks when I get excited about snow and winter, and, you know, people, like you say, that don't do anything but fight with it. You know, it looks completely different. All you have to do is get out there and enjoy it. It's wonderful.
So you've done a fantastic thing, is you've taken your knowledge and your resources from 25 years of tracking and doing it with a lot of groups and a lot of teaching and workshops and so forth like that, and learning from other experts in the field, I mean, in a way, you're really a wildlife biologist. You're not a hunter. You're an ecologist, but that have learned so many things, and you are sharing that and giving those skills, those opportunities to those resources for people to learn more themselves and go out and interpret what they see better. So let's talk a little bit about your book then, and A Field Guide to Tracking Mammals in the Northeast by Linda Spielman. So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, and let's just start with a few images that I brought to get into, why did I write this book? Because really, if you know much about tracking, you'd have to say, why would you write another tracking book? Because there are several really good books out there. There was a missing thing though, and I hope I can explain it.
Let's go through some of the images then. But before we do that though, I just want to say this: you can learn a lot more about what Linda is doing in upcoming tracking events that she's got going on at her website at lindajspielman.com. So, and when we get this show up online, I'll have that website there as well. But let's go to your first image that you're sharing with us.
So for a number of years, I've been leading informal local tracking groups. I call it Tracking Club, and if you go to my website, it'll tell you how to get your name on my list, and it's very loose. If people can come, they come. If they don't, they don't. It's not, attendance taken or anything like that. But let's go back to the Porcupine Tree, which we visited last year, a group of us, and we all learned a lot by just heading out to Connecticut Hill and being guided to this tree. Someone had found it on a skiing trip, so we were out there just to look at it, and that's one of the great ways of learning about tracks, is to be with other people who are also interested and talk about things, ask questions, have other people ask questions. If you go to the next slide, it's something I think about in terms of where we come from with tracking, because what you're seeing on the screen is Australian rock art drawn thousands of years ago by Australian indigenous hunter-gatherer people. Before they could walk, tracking was in their world. They lived by knowing where the animals were, who was there, what they were doing, what they could eat, what was dangerous, everything about nature. They had to read that. We, in our life, coming to this kind of thinking, usually as adults, maybe as young adults, we miss so much. We didn't grow up as toddlers, as teenagers, with our world infused with tracking. So we have to kind of make it up other ways, and one of the ways is to go out with people, and then also to spend a lot of time, for those that get really interested, on your own, just looking at tracks and doing as much as you can with them. I started out, of course, looking for tracks after I realized I was really interested in it, and I wanted to look for perfect tracks. So the next image, those are perfect tracks. That's a gray squirrel. Gorgeous tracks. You can see all the toes. You can see the pads, the claws, everything. Number of toes. The next one. The next image shows perfect tracks of two foxes, the red fox on the left and the gray fox on the right. You can see all the toes, see the rounder shape of the gray fox, the more elongated shape of the red fox. That's what we tend to do as beginning trackers, look for perfect tracks.
But not all tracks are perfect, are they?
Absolutely not.
There's a lot out there that where you wonder about, or if we don't know what we're looking at, then it's hard to interpret it. So maybe this next slide is an illustration of that.
If you have a typical tracking book and it shows those typical perfect forms for the fox tracks, the red and the gray fox, That one, yeah. You find something like this, you're like, there's nothing like that in my book. I don't have a clue.
It's a total mystery to me.
Go to the next one. There's another one. What is this thing?
Worms? I don't know.
People can get frustrated,
Yeah.
and I found that as I went out with groups of people, and I would we'd be doing a lot of discussing, but I'd be trying to share my own experience, and I would be saying, well, this is a red fox track. It's different from the one in your book, and that the reason for that is that fox was running really fast, and its track came down differently.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, it doesn't look right. So I became aware of the level of frustration. Now, tracking is not a simple thing. And I don't want to cast aspersions on any other branch of natural science, but it's not like you're looking at a beech tree and all the leaves really look like beech leaves.
Yeah.
Maybe bigger or smaller, but they all look right for beech leaves. That's not going to be true in tracking.
Right. Okay, so what do we look at next here? Let's see.
Well, I'll show you some more examples of perfect tracks. There's a perfect pattern for a cottontail rabbit. Nice pattern of, on the left, the 2 rear feet, on the right, the 2 front feet, and the direction of travel is from right to left. That's hard for people to get sometimes. So that's a very typical cottontail rabbit array of all the 4 feet.
Yeah, because you see it in the cartoons.
You can see it in our cartoons. That's what I always tell people. If you look at Bugs Bunny, you'll see how he lands on the front feet, his back feet swing around outside and hit the ground, and he's off for the next leap. And those magical leaps in the cartoons, of course, are crazy, but it's the right motion. Yeah. But then you see tracks like, say, this one. Well, that one, that's a front foot of a cottontail rabbit, showing lots more than you'll normally see in a rabbit track. And if you go to the next one,
it reminds me of a dinosaur track in shell.
Tracks can get really weird, but they're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
And here you go. A lot of people seeing this one will say, "Oh, that's not a rabbit. That's a snowshoe hare." Because look at those big spreading rear feet in that bounding pattern. Well, cottontail rabbits can spread their feet too when they need to. But do you see that in the normal tracking books?
Maybe not.
I don't.
Maybe not,
I don't find that that's illustrated. And then here's another one just to show the variation. Another variant. This rabbit took off from its back feet, which is what you see in that image. But it was the substrate was so firm and the action was so vigorous that all you're seeing is the little toes and claws kind of angling down into the substrate as the rabbit is leaping off of its rear feet.
Mud here,
Yeah, mud, but pretty firm mud.
Firm mud,
that's one of the variations. The 2 big variations are the way the animal's moving and the type of surface it's on.
Yeah. So this is the not, as you say, these other books are excellent, but this fills in a gap maybe or a.
There was a gap. I felt like it would help people. And see, here's the thing: all experienced trackers have a storehouse of these images in their head.
From their experience.
They experience them. They kind of categorize them. They make kind of little, almost mental file cabinets of all the variations. So people know this. It's not like it's I discovered these things.
Right.
But it's just not out there, so that a would-be a learning tracker, someone who's not real experienced, can start looking at things in this way rather than saying, "Oh, I can only deal with the tracks that have everything I need."
Yeah, right. That's great. So that really fills in a gap for all of us, and for those of us that are trying to learn. And as you say, people that are very experienced trackers have these images in them, and you're simply putting them in the book and making them show the variation, so that we can interpret a lot more of what we see and understand things that and not misinterpret.
Now, to do that, and to make it portable, because what good would it be if you couldn't carry it?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some good books that have so much stuff in that you wouldn't want to carry them. You know, they weigh like 5 pounds or something. So to do this, I focused really on the tracks. Very little bit, but very little about other topics like diet, behavior, yearly, seasonal cycle, you know, other sorts of things. You can always go back and check on that. Well, is a jumping mouse active at this time of year? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
Or what would it be eating? You know, would I expect to find a such and such animal, like a coyote? Would I expect to find a coyote eating apples? You know, does that make sense? You can find a lot of stuff, you know, in your reference books. But if you're looking at tracks, you want everything, all the information that is out there to do the track. So that's what it is. It's just tracks.
Very
I almost,
specific. Yeah.
in fact, considered in the beginning calling the book Just Tracks, but that would have been kind of silly. So
Yeah. Well, that's
didn't end up with
fantastic.
that title.
We have some other images here. This is
Well, see, that's the thing. I've been photographing tracks for many years, and that was part of the way that I cataloged variations in addition to the beautiful, perfect tracks. And then from my photographs, I started drawing them. So the images, those that you're seeing there, are some of my drawings of Cottontail Rabbit tracks. And they're taken directly from photographs. So, and I labored over them to make sure that the proportions were right, and the you know, dimensions of the track and the relative positions and everything was exactly right.
right.
You have to, drawings aren't always accurate. You'll find some drawings of tracks that really don't represent the track accurately. So that was important. If I'm saying, you know, this is what you can use to identify variations, it needs to be accurate. So they are totally accurate. There's a few pages, just an example for an opossum, the part where the text begins, and then on the right, an array of different drawings of opossum tracks. So I give dimensions. I've been measuring tracks, you know, all the time. I've been tracking, and there are also lots of reference books out there that also have dimensions. So I was always checking mine against theirs to see, do we agree? Do I think they're bigger? You know, so that I give dimensions, and I give try to, without being too labored about it, point out what's important to see, illustrate in the drawings, but what are the important points? And how do you tell related animals from each other, or how do you...
Sort of like the field marks on a bird.
Yeah, exactly like that. And so I put all that into words, which was really quite a process, because, you know, there are a lot of things you have in your head, but when you try to put them into words, you need to make it clear, not just to yourself, but to other people.
Right. And also, it's a verbal description is different from an image. So at the same time, the image may need some verbal interpretation.
They need it, you need both. To really have a complete collection of all the information that you need to identify them.
Interesting. So so how do people, if they're interested in getting this book, how would they do that?
If they come along with me on any of my outings, I will have some. They're at regular bookstores, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon has them, and you know, all the regular outlets.
Right here in Ithaca? I mean, there's Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
The other ones
have it. Yep. So it's out there.
They are available in normal bookstores and online.
Bookstores.
So that's fantastic.
Yes.
You can look around. Just A Field Guide to Tracking Mammals in the Northeast by Linda Spielman. So let's go on. By the way, this is Walk in the Park, and you can see all our shows at walkinthepark.tv, public access television in Ithaca, New York. And we're with Linda Spielman, who is tracker 25 years of tracking experience, leading groups, teaching workshops, and learning all she can of this subject that is her passion, and is the author of, if I can get back to the image of it, this book. So, okay, let's go on maybe this. What are we looking at? What are we looking at here?
Gates. Ah, what a subject. It's like math panic. There's gate panic. How animals move is really important in understanding who they are and what they're doing, and all sorts of things about the stories that they're telling us. But it can be difficult to relate the movement of the animal to the pattern that you see on the snow.
Yeah.
Now, I can't really address that directly in a book because, you know, we need to have the animal and moving some kind of video or something, which are available these days on the internet. You can watch a lot of animal videos. So
sure can.
But what I did want to do was put in the book diagrams that had the right proportions. So,
like these? Would these be?
Like those. So in the previous slide, in the photographs, on the left are the tracks of a walking gray fox. On the right are the tracks of a trotting gray fox. But in the diagrams, I've attempted to show, and I think you can see on the left there, the one on the left, the extreme left, is a direct register walk for a canid, such as a gray fox. And 2 over, again, it's a direct register, that's why they have the hash marks through them, is a trotting pattern. Now, this whole set of diagrams is a little bit intimidating, so don't worry too much about it, but it's just to illustrate that if you want to get the gait information that tracks tell you, it's in the book as well, and it's explained. There's a whole section for each species about the way it moves and the gaits and the typical patterns and how to understand them.
Cool. Yeah, I think I saw a book many years ago about tracking in winter. I can't remember the name of the book, but there was some of that information in it. But this looks like it's a lot more thorough.
Yeah, it varies. So there are some books that are quite very good. In fact, do put more explanation into gaits than I could to really explain differences between different categories of gaits. Again, these are books that you should have in your library if you get interested in tracking, and you should really read these sections on gaits so that you start to understand them. But in my book, it's really just the diagrams and the explanations as more information, yet again, more information on what is this animal and what are the tracks telling us.
So what's the value? Is there a larger value other than your own personal passion of learning about animals? I mean, well, one of the things you pointed out earlier was that people evolved with tracking. The tracking was part of people's lives because they depended on these animals and they had to be able to read them. And that bent over grass over there is like, that animal passed through there. You could read that if you learned. Right. And all these subtle things and what the animal was doing, as you're talking about, whether it's running or walking or what obviously what species it was. So it's in our bones in a way. It's in our
brain cells.
Yeah.
Tracking, it is said, was the first science, and our brains evolved as we tracked for survival. I feel like it's a whole brain activity. It's wonderful for anyone who wants to kind of exercise their brain. There's one value in it.
It's really kind of detective work.
It really uses science and analysis and very detailed observation, but also a larger picture, putting subtle things together, seeing patterns of what we typically think of as right brain stuff, even kind of the energy of the way what it looks like. So it's a whole brain activity. So there's one wonderful thing about it. It's wonderful for kids, really.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of a better thing.
And kids really get into it.
They do.
Yeah.
And tracks are beautiful. There's another thing. I love to look at them. I can look at the 1,000th squirrel track that I've ever seen and say, that's so beautiful. It just wipes me out how wonderful they look.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, for most of us, we also feel like we don't want to just go out and have fun. We want to contribute somehow. And, okay, the world is changing. Animals are going to be stressed. Things are going to happen that will threaten some of the natural systems that we are so familiar with and take for granted. People, I mean, there are officials, there are agencies, there are all kinds of science studies and all, but who would know what's happening to the animals in your backyard? Nobody but you. You're the one.
Yeah.
Who would know what's happening to the bear populations in Danby State Forest?
Yeah.
Only the people that go there.
Yeah.
There are no wildlife officials in Albany that know that.
Right.
We're the ones. So we can actually become caretakers, monitors. We can be aware and maybe even become proactive about doing what we need to do to give these animals a chance as the climate changes and ranges change, plants change, seasonal timing changes, all kinds of stuff is happening. We need to be out there as trackers, observing, just to see what is going on and what's happening, what's changing, what's being threatened, what's being lost, maybe even what's being gained. You know, all sorts of changes in all directions are going to be happening.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Linda. This is Linda Spielman, who is the author of the new book that's just come out this summer, Field Guide to Tracking Mammals in the Northeast, and that is available online at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other bookstores probably have it. So I want to thank you very much for joining us today, Linda, and sharing your information about your book, but also your inspiration and your explanation of what the value of tracking is and how we can all get involved in it. So
thanks a lot, Tony. It's been great.
Okay.
It's been fun.
We got to sign off here now. So thanks for joining us, and turn off this screen and go outside and see what you can see in the landscape about animals and plants and so forth. And go for a walk in the park.